I don't play, for records. I play just for my own story, and obviously, in the same time, it means a lot to me. But tomorrow is another day, another opponent, a different opponent. We're gonna play in different conditions. It's gonna be night match. So
Jannik Sinner just did something that even Novak Djokovic couldn't hold on to, and then acted like it was nothing. At a time when most players would be shouting from the rooftops, posting highlights, running to the cameras, Sinner simply won his match, packed his bag, and told the world he doesn't even think about records. And somehow, that reaction tells you more about who this man is than the milestone itself ever could. Let's talk about what actually happened in Rome. Sinner stepped onto the court against Andrey Rublev, one of the most powerful ball strikers on the ATP Tour, a man who could dismantle almost anyone on any given day. And Sinner didn't just win. He won 6-2, 6-4. Clean, efficient, ruthless in the most calm way possible. No drama, no five-set thriller, no nervous moments, just tennis played at a level that made a top 10 opponent look almost ordinary. That victory was his 32nd consecutive win in a Masters 1000 tournament. 32 in a row, across different surfaces, different opponents, different seasons, different continents. And with that win, he stepped past Novak Djokovic, arguably the greatest tennis player who has ever lived, who held 31 consecutive Masters wins back in 2021 at the peak of his career. Sinner just walked right past that number like he was checking a box on a grocery list. Now, here's what I want you to really sit with for a second. Djokovic's record was set when he was at the absolute height of his powers. He had already won multiple Grand Slams. He already had years and years of elite-level dominance behind him. He knew exactly who he was and what he was capable of. And even he stopped at 31. Sinner is 24 years old. He is still, by every measure, becoming. He is still somewhere in the middle of his own transformation. And yet here he is, rewriting history at an age when most players are just figuring out how to handle pressure on the big stage. But what happened after the win is what truly defines this moment. A journalist asked him about the record, about Djokovic, about history, and Sinner gave an answer that the tennis world genuinely did not expect. He said, "I don't play for records. I play just for my own story." Let that sit. He's not playing for the history books. He's not chasing Djokovic's shadow. He's not trying to be the greatest of all time. He's trying to be the best version of himself. And the records are just things that happened when you do that consistently enough. He went further. He said that what matters most to him is how people see him as a human being. That being known as fair, as a good person, as someone with integrity, that sits above everything else. The tennis level is underneath that. The records are even further down. What he's building first is character, and everything else follows from that foundation. That is an extraordinary thing to hear from a 24-year-old sitting at the top of world tennis. Most athletes at that age are hungry for legacy. They want their name remembered. They want the numbers, the titles, the comparisons to the greats. And Sinner does want all of those things, but they're not the reason he gets up every morning. He also gave us a window into how far he's come in his own mind. He said he would never have imagined, as a younger player, that he would be standing here at this level. That once, tennis at this height felt unreachable, something he could dream about but not truly see himself achieving. And now that he's here, he says the perspective has completely changed, not in a way that makes him complacent, in a way that makes him grateful. That makes every win feel earned rather than expected. That kind of self-awareness is rare. And it matters because it tells you this run isn't built on ego or arrogance. It's built on something much quieter and much more durable. Now let's look at the actual run itself, because it deserves to be seen clearly. 5 consecutive Masters 1000 titles. 5. Starting at the Paris Masters at the end of last season, then continuing into 2025 with the Indian Wells Open, the Miami Open, the Monte-Carlo Masters, and the Madrid Open. That is the Paris hardcourt, the American hardcourts, the clay of Monaco, the clay of Spain. Different countries, different surfaces, different types of opponents throwing different styles of tennis at him. And he won all of them, back to back to back to back to back. For context, winning one Masters 1000 title is considered a major achievement. Reaching a Masters final is what defines a season for most players. Winning 2 in a row is the kind of thing that gets written about for years. 5 consecutive is something the sport has almost never seen at this level and at this pace. And now he walks into Roland Garros, the French Open, as the clear favorite. On the red clay of Paris. On the surface where Rafa Nadal built his cathedral. On the court where history is made every late May and early June when the best players in the world converge to find out who can survive 2 weeks of the most physically and mentally demanding tennis on earth. Sinner arrives there not as a hopeful, not as a contender, not as someone with a chance. He arrives as the #1 player in the world, riding one of the most dominant stretches of Masters tennis in the sport's history, having just surpassed the greatest player of his generation in a record that no one thought would be broken this soon. And yet, if you ask him about it, he shrugs. He smiles. He says he's just writing his own story. There is something deeply different about the way Sinner processes greatness. Most elite athletes need the external validation to fuel them. They need the rankings, the records, the comparisons, the narrative of being the best to keep pushing. Sinner has disconnected from all of that. He has found a way to be at peace with himself first and let the results follow from that peace. It's almost philosophical, and it's producing historically dominant tennis. Think about what that means going forward. A player who doesn't get overconfident when he wins, doesn't get destabilized when things go wrong, and doesn't care about records enough to let them become pressure. That is the hardest kind of player to beat. Because you can't get inside his head. There's nothing to exploit. He's already told you he's not chasing anything you can take away from him. Carlos Alcaraz will have something to say at Roland Garros. He always does. He is brilliant on clay, creative and explosive in ways that test even the best defenders. And that semi-final or final, whenever it comes, will be one of the great tennis matches of this generation. But Sinner is walking into that tournament having already answered the biggest question you could ask of any player in form. Can you sustain it when the pressure is highest? His last 32 matches at the Masters level say yes. Emphatically yes. At 24, having surpassed Djokovic, having stacked 5 consecutive titles across 2 different surfaces, having answered every challenge with quiet and immovable excellence, Jannik Sinner is not coming. He is already here. And the most frightening part? He genuinely believes he hasn't even reached his peak yet.